Have you ever believed you could truly understand someone just by reading their body language? If so, you've been misled. Body language can be rehearsed, faked, and misinterpreted. What if I told you that the real way to read someone's mind has nothing to do with folded arms, shifting eyes, or nervous smiles? Or maybe you've been told that mind reading is some mystical gift that only magicians, manipulators, or psychologists have the power to access another person's inner world. That too is false. It's not magic. It's not manipulation. It's a skill, one that you can learn, practice, and master. And here's the third myth. Perhaps you think that only the genius types, the socially gifted, the charismatic, or the hyper-intelligent are able to see into someone else's soul. But the truth is the exact opposite. The ability to understand someone deeply does not require special talent. It requires the right questions. These three myths: body language, mystical gift, intellectual superiority, are the illusions most people live under. The Stoics would shake their heads at this because they knew the truth. Wisdom isn't about guessing. It's about clarity. And clarity comes from asking. So imagine this. You're sitting across from someone. Maybe a colleague, a date, a friend, or even your child. You want to know what they're really thinking, what they value, what drives them. Instead of guessing, instead of projecting, instead of relying on stereotypes, you have the ability to cut straight into the heart of who they are with 5 deceptively simple questions. Socrates once said, "Know thyself is the beginning of all wisdom." But knowing others, truly understanding them, is an equally important kind of wisdom. And that's where these 5 questions come in. Each one is like a key. One unlocks their joy. One unlocks their growth. Another unlocks their values. Then comes their courage. And finally, their deepest desires. But let me be clear. This is not about manipulation. This is not about prying into private corners where you don't belong. This is about connection, real, authentic, soul-to-soul connection. We live in a world where people are starving to be understood. Yet most of us are too busy with shallow conversations. What do you do? Or how's the weather? We skate on the surface while the ocean of a person's real identity remains untouched. That's why today, I want to guide you through these 5 questions, not just as conversation starters, but as windows into the human soul. Along the way, we'll pull wisdom from the Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, because their clarity about human nature still speaks to us today. If you're ready to elevate your conversations, to build trust faster, to understand people at a level most never reach, then stay with me. Because once you learn to ask these questions, you'll never look at conversations the same way again. Welcome to StoicCraft, where ancient wisdom meets modern connection. If this resonates with you, make sure you follow along, because this journey will not only change how you see others, it will change how you see yourself. Think about the last time someone asked you, "How's your week going?" What did you say? Chances are, you gave the same bland response everyone else does. Busy, not bad, pretty good. These are not answers. They're shields. They protect us from vulnerability, but they also prevent connection. Now compare that to a different question. What's been the highlight of your week so far? Notice the difference. It's subtle, but powerful. Instead of asking for a vague status report, you're asking for a story. You're asking for the moment that lit them up, the small event that gave them joy, the experience that still lingers in their memory. This is where the magic happens. Because when someone answers, they are not just telling you about their week. They are telling you about what they value. They are showing you, without realizing it, what matters most to them. I remember sitting across from a colleague years ago. Normally, our conversations were limited to deadlines and deliverables. But that day, I asked her, "What's been the highlight of your week?" She paused because no one had asked her that before, and then her entire face changed. She said, "Honestly, It was helping my neighbor move furniture. She's elderly, and I spent my Saturday getting her settled into a new apartment. That answer told me everything I needed to know. Her highlight wasn't about personal achievement or recognition. It was about service, kindness, and human connection. From that moment, I knew I could trust her to prioritize people over ego. 6 months later, when I needed a dependable partner for a team project, she was the first person I called, and she proved me right. This is the beauty of the question. Career-driven people might talk about a promotion. Family-centered people will describe moments with their kids. Adventurous types will recall a trip, a discovery, or a daring activity. Food lovers might rave about the new restaurant they stumbled upon. But the real gold isn't just in what they say, it's in how they say it. Pay attention. When they recall their highlight, their voice shifts, their body leans forward, their eyes sparkle. In that moment, you're not just hearing information, you're witnessing authenticity. The Stoics remind us that happiness is found in simple things. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." The highlight question reveals what that very little is for each person. And there's more. This question isn't just diagnostic, it's predictive. When you know what energizes someone, you can anticipate how they'll behave. The colleague who lights up about helping her neighbor, she'll probably thrive in team environments. The person who talks about finishing a project, they'll bring order and persistence. The one who raves about spontaneous adventures, they'll resist routine, but bring creativity. I've used this question everywhere, at job interviews, on first dates, during networking events, even while catching up with old friends. Each time, it transforms the conversation from small talk to soul talk. Once, a potential business partner told me his highlight was organizing my garage. Now, that might sound mundane, but it revealed his love of order, structure, and completion. Later, when we worked together, those traits made him indispensable in project management. Another time, a friend said, "I found this tiny hole in the wall cafe that no one knows about." That answer showed curiosity, appreciation for hidden gems, and a desire to discover. It told me he was the kind of person who thrives on novelty. And that shaped how I connected with him by sharing new experiences. Not just familiar routines, but here's the most fascinating part. Sometimes people struggle to answer. They frown, pause, and finally say, "Honestly, I can't think of anything." Don't dismiss this. It is equally revealing. It may signal that they're going through hardship, that they are too focused on problems to notice joy, or that they haven't built the habit of reflection. Their silence speaks volumes. This question also uncovers when and where they experience joy. Was their highlight at work, with friends, alone, or with family? Was it planned or spontaneous? These details map out the conditions that fuel their fulfillment. Once you know this, you don't just understand them, you can connect with them in ways that align with their values. Let's bring in a Stoic reflection. Seneca once wrote that the wise person is never poor because they recognize the wealth already present in simple joys. When someone shares their highlight, they're unknowingly telling you what wealth means to them. For some, it's success. For others, connection. For others still, peace, growth, or discovery. So the next time you meet someone, skip the weather talk. Don't ask, "How's it going?" Instead, lean in, smile, and say, "What's been the highlight of your week so far?" Watch how the conversation changes. Watch how the person before you suddenly becomes more alive, more open, more real. This is question 1. And it's only the beginning. Let's stretch this further. Imagine you're on a first date. The usual script is predictable. Job, hobbies, maybe a quick joke about traffic. But when you ask, "What's been the highlight of your week?" You cut through the performance. You're inviting them to show their authentic self. If their face lights up as they talk about cooking for their younger sibling, you know they value care and family. If they share excitement about a new project at work, you learn ambition drives them. Without realizing it, they've revealed a piece of their core identity. Now picture using this with your children. Instead of the dreaded, "How was school?" which almost always gets the dreaded, "Fine, try." What was the best part of your day? You'll be amazed at what spills out. The new friend they made, the subject that fascinated them, or even the small victory of being picked first for a team. These details are windows into their developing passions and personalities. And by asking, you're showing them that their joy matters to you, which strengthens trust. This question even transforms work environments. In team meetings, leaders often dive straight into numbers and targets. But what if, just once a week, you asked everyone, "What's been the highlight of your week?" Suddenly, the meeting isn't just about productivity. It's about humanity. Team members learn what excites each other. They see who thrives on recognition, who values collaboration, who craves novelty. And that awareness makes the team stronger. The Stoics believed in paying attention to the small signals of life. Epictetus reminded us that it's not events themselves, but our interpretation of them that matters. Asking someone about their highlights invites them to interpret their life through the lens of gratitude. It nudges them to pause, reflect, and realize, even in a difficult week, there was something good. This is not just about you learning about them, it's about them rediscovering themselves. Think about the ripple effect. A friend who struggles to find a highlight may realize, "Wow, I haven't noticed joy in weeks." That awareness could spark change. A colleague who shares a highlight about mentoring a junior employee may recognize that leadership is their calling. A partner who says their highlight was simply enjoying coffee in silence might be teaching you that stillness, too, is a form of joy. And here's the deeper layer. By listening closely, you train yourself to notice patterns. Over time, you'll see what consistently fuels them. If every week their highlight is people-focused, you know they are relational at their core. If it's achievement-driven, they find energy in progress. If it's curiosity, they thrive on novelty. These patterns are the blueprint of their motivation. There's also wisdom in noticing the absence of certain themes. If someone never mentions family, it might indicate distance or independence. If they never celebrate achievements, maybe they downplay success or struggle with self-worth. The silences speak as loudly as the words. So why does this matter? Because we live in a world where everyone craves connection but drowns in noise. Social media gives us endless highlights, but they're curated, polished, filtered. This question, asked in person, breaks through the facade. It's raw, it's real, and it reminds both you and them that happiness isn't measured in likes, it's measured in moments. In the end, what's been the highlight of your week is more than small talk. It's a Stoic practice of attention and gratitude disguised as casual conversation. It's a mirror that reflects values, an X-ray that reveals character, and a bridge that turns acquaintances into allies, strangers into friends, colleagues into collaborators. So don't underestimate this simple question. Ask it often, ask it sincerely, and then listen not just with your ears, but with your eyes, your patience, and your heart. Because in that answer lies the essence of who they are. This question is a mirror. It doesn't just reflect who someone is today, it reveals who they used to be and how they've changed. Asking, "What's something you used to believe but no longer do?" may seem simple, but it strikes at the heart of growth, humility, and self-awareness. Think about it. To answer honestly, someone has to admit they were wrong, or at least incomplete, at one point in their life. They must reveal not just what they believe now, but the evolution that brought them there. And in that space between old belief and new wisdom, you glimpse their capacity to change. I once asked this during a leadership interview. The candidates' resumes sparkled, elite schools, top companies, glowing references. But I wasn't interested in credentials. I wanted to know if he could admit fallibility. When I asked, he thought for a moment, then said, I used to believe that working longer hours meant being more productive. I'd stay in the office until 9 every night, convinced that effort equaled results. But I realized focus matters more than hours, and some of the colleagues I judged as lazy were actually outperforming me. That one answer told me more about his character than any polished resume. It showed humility, it showed the ability to observe, to admit error, and to transform behavior. I hired him. 3 years later, he became one of the most effective leaders I'd ever worked with, not because he was flawless, but because he was flexible. Now contrast that with another experience. I once asked the same question to a potential business partner. He smirked and said, honestly, I can't think of anything. I've always had good instincts. That response raised red flags. It told me he lacked self-reflection, or worse, that his pride prevented honesty. Working with him would mean endless battles against rigidity. Needless to say, I declined the partnership. The beauty of this question is that it immediately sorts people. Some light up and share multiple lessons. I used to think asking for help was weakness. Now I see it as wisdom. Well, I used to believe money was irrelevant, but I've learned financial security gives freedom. These people view growth as natural. Others hesitate, fumble, or deflect. Their discomfort reveals their discomfort with themselves. The Stoics understood this deeply. Seneca wrote, every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. Growth always requires letting go of an old version of ourselves. To change your mind is not to fail, it is to evolve. But not everyone embraces that. Some cling to outdated beliefs, even when reality disproves them. Others rewrite history, pretending they were never wrong. Both paths block wisdom. What makes this question so revealing is the language people use. Pay attention. The self-aware often say, I learned, I discovered, or I realized. The insecure tend to say, I was wrong, but it wasn't my fault, or I made a mistake, but only because. Language betrays mindset. True maturity frames change as growth, not shame. This question also uncovers someone's worldview. A person who says, I used to believe nice guys finish last, but I learned kindness is strength, has been shaped by relational experiences. Another who says, I used to think spirituality was irrelevant. Now I see meaning matters, reveals a philosophical shift. Someone else might say, I thought discipline was punishment, but now I see its freedom, reflecting Stoic wisdom almost word for word. Here's the practical brilliance. Once you know how someone has changed, you can predict how they will handle future change. If they've evolved before, they will evolve again. If they've never admitted being wrong, chances are they never will. That knowledge can save you years of frustration in partnerships, friendships, or relationships. But this question isn't just about the other person. It's also about you. Try asking yourself right now, what's something I used to believe but no longer do? Maybe you once thought success was about possessions. Maybe you thought strength meant never showing emotion. Maybe you thought happiness was external. What you've let go of defines you as much as what you've embraced. And here's the paradox. Change makes us more consistent. Why? Because when we release false beliefs, we align closer to truth. The Stoics didn't fear changing their minds. They feared living blindly. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, if someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake in any thought or action, I shall gladly change. For I seek the truth, by which no one was ever truly harmed. That's the spirit of this question. So, the next time you want to know if someone is self-aware, don't ask about their strengths. Ask about their evolution. Listen not only to the belief they abandoned, but to the humility, the curiosity, and the resilience it took to let it go. Because that, more than any resume, tells you who they really are. Let's take this question into daily life. Imagine using it with a close friend, over coffee. Instead of recycling the same old stories, you ask, what's something you used to believe but don't anymore? You may discover that the friend you thought you knew has gone through invisible transformations. Maybe they once believed they had to stay silent in conflict, but now they've learned to speak up. Maybe they thought loyalty meant tolerating mistreatment, but now they understand boundaries are healthy. Suddenly, the conversation goes deeper than gossip. It becomes a window into resilience. In families, this question can be transformative. Parents often assume they know their children's beliefs, but children evolve rapidly. A teenager might once have believed popularity defined worth, but later they realize self-respect matters more. When parents hear this shift directly, they don't just learn about their child, they witness their growth. And when children hear their parents admit past misconceptions, it humanizes them. A father saying, "I used to think working all the time was love, but now I know presence matters more," communicates wisdom no lecture could deliver professionally. Leaders who ask this question build stronger teams. Why? Because they uncover how employees have grown. An employee who says, "I used to think asking for help was weakness," signals readiness for collaboration. One who says, "I used to think rushing meant progress, but I've learned patience delivers quality," shows maturity that benefits the whole team. Leaders who listen don't just manage, they mentor, and the Stoic connection runs deep here. Epictetus taught that our suffering often comes not from events, but from the beliefs we hold about them. If we can change those beliefs, we can change our lives. Each time someone answers this question, they're demonstrating that very Stoic principle: freedom comes not from controlling the world, but from reshaping our inner framework. So pause for a moment. Ask yourself again, what's one belief I've outgrown? Notice how it feels to admit it. Is there pride in growth, or shame in having been wrong? The way you answer may be the most honest reflection of your relationship with wisdom. The Stoics would remind us, admitting change isn't weakness, it's the only path to truth. This might be the most revealing of all the 5 questions. On the surface, it sounds hypothetical, even harmless, but in reality, it slices straight to the core of someone's values. When you ask, if you could change one thing about how people treat each other, what would it be? You're not asking about trivia. You're asking about their philosophy of relationships, their pain points, and their ideals all wrapped into one. The genius of this question is that it feels safe. You're not asking, what hurt you? Or what's your trauma? You're asking about humanity in general. That distance makes it comfortable to answer. Yet their response is always deeply personal. When they say, "I wish people would keep their promises," you can hear the echo of broken commitments in their past. When they say, "I wish people would stop judging others," you glimpse the sting of unfair criticism. When they say, "I wish people would actually listen instead of waiting for their turn to talk," you sense years of being ignored. I once asked this to a potential business partner. After a pause, he said, "I wish people would stop making promises they don't intend to keep." That one line told me more about him than hours of small talk. It revealed integrity mattered to him, that he'd been burned by betrayal before, and that reliability was his non-negotiable. And over time, it proved true. He became the most dependable partner I ever had. He called if he was running 5 minutes late. He always delivered exactly what he promised. His answer had been a blueprint of his character. This is why the question is so powerful. It bypasses pretense. Some people will emphasize kindness. I wish people were more compassionate. Others will stress honesty. I wish people would just say what they mean. Still, others highlight respect. I wish people would stop interrupting and actually listen. Whatever they say, it's never abstract, it's a reflection of what they have lacked, what they've been wounded by, and what they most value. Consider this: someone who says, "I wish people would stop judging others for things they can't control," is almost certainly speaking from experience. Perhaps they've been marginalized or misunderstood. Their wish for acceptance reveals both their empathy and their scars. Another person might say, "I wish people would follow through on commitments to themselves." That answer suggests they've witnessed or struggled with self-sabotage, procrastination, and broken discipline. It reveals they prize self-respect as the foundation of all other relationships. The Stoics understood this dynamic well. Epictetus advised, "Know first who you are, and then adorn yourself accordingly." In other words, how we treat others reveals who we are at the core. This question forces that revelation. When someone tells you how they wish humanity behaved, they're really telling you how they wish they were treated. It also reveals their emotional tone. Some answer with anger. People need to stop lying. Others with hope. I wish people gave each other more second chances. Others with resignation. I wish people cared. But I don't think they ever will. Each tone tells you whether their worldview is marked by bitterness, optimism, or cynicism. And notice the scale of their vision. Some answers are interpersonal: kindness, honesty, patience. Others are systemic: fairness, justice, equality. Both are valuable but very different. Someone who thinks systemically may be drawn to causes, activism, or reform. Someone who thinks interpersonally may be more focused on daily kindness and personal integrity. Either way, the answer sketches their blueprint for what makes human relationships succeed or fail. Now, let's bring this closer to everyday life. Imagine asking your spouse, if you could change one thing about how people treat each other, what would it be? You might discover they crave more gratitude, or less criticism, or more presence. That knowledge doesn't just inform you, it empowers you to love them better. Ask a colleague, and you might learn they value accountability or open communication, helping you collaborate more effectively. Ask a friend, and you might uncover the wound that shaped their resilience. The Stoic link is clear. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "If someone can show me that I am wrong, I will gladly change, for I seek the truth." That is the posture of someone who values honesty, directness, and humility. If your friend says they wish people were more honest, they are echoing Marcus across 2,000 years. If they say compassion, they are echoing Seneca's emphasis on shared humanity. So, the next time you want to know someone's values, skip the personality tests. Don't ask for their 5-year plan. Ask this question, and then listen not only to the words, but to the history hiding beneath them. Their answer is not just a wish for the world, it's a confession of what shaped their soul. Some questions test what people value. Others test how they've grown. But this one, it tests courage. What's a decision you made that surprised even yourself? This question reveals the moments when someone broke their own script, when they stepped outside of the version of themselves they and everyone else thought they were. It's about self-surprise, and self-surprise is often the best evidence of growth. I once asked this in a team setting, expecting small, cautious answers. Then Sarah, the quietest member of the group, the one who always played it safe, who rarely spoke unless asked, said, "I quit my corporate job to start a food truck." I'd never cooked professionally. Everyone was shocked, including me. But something in me needed to create. In that instant, Sarah was no longer just the quiet one. She became someone who carried fire under the surface. Her decision revealed entrepreneurial spirit. hidden courage, and an instinct for risk that none of us had ever seen. Later, when our company needed someone to lead an innovative project, Sarah was the obvious choice. That one story reframed her in everyone's eyes. This is the power of the question. It separates those who live on autopilot from those who are willing to disrupt their own patterns. A person who says, "I've never really surprised myself," may be consistent but also rigid. It often signals someone who avoids risks, who clings tightly to comfort zones. In contrast, the person who lights up and says, "I never thought I could do X, but I did," shows adaptability and hidden strength. One man once told me, "I've always hated public speaking, but I volunteered to give a talk at a major conference. I was terrified, but I survived, and to my surprise, I even enjoyed it." That single choice spoke volumes. It revealed that he wasn't chained by fear. He was willing to test his limits, and in doing so, discovered joy in what he once dreaded. The Stoics understood that character is revealed not in words, but in actions under pressure. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "Adapt yourself to the life you've been given, and love the people with whom you share it." This isn't passive acceptance. It's active adaptation. When someone surprises themselves, they are demonstrating that same Stoic adaptability. They are proving they are not static, they are becoming. What's beautiful here is the emotional tone of the answer. Some speak with pride. "I can't believe I did that." Others with regret. "I tried, but it didn't work." Others with curiosity. "I never thought I'd enjoy it, but I did." Each tone reveals their relationship with risk. Pride shows growth. Regret shows caution. Curiosity shows openness. And look closely at the content. Someone who surprises themselves by standing up to a boss shows hidden courage. Someone who chooses art over money reveals passion. Someone who helps a stranger reveals compassion. These surprises are windows into dormant strengths, qualities that may not show in routine life, but burst forth in defining moments. Now, let's talk about why this matters in everyday relationships. Asking this question to a partner can uncover dimensions you never knew. Maybe your spouse once thought they'd never travel alone, but one day they did, and it changed them. Asking it to a friend might reveal that the most cautious person you know once took a massive leap of faith. Asking it to a colleague can show you whether they'll rise to the occasion when unpredictability strikes, and for yourself. It's a wake-up call. Ask, "What's a decision I made that surprised even me?" Did you choose forgiveness when you thought you couldn't? Did you walk away from a toxic situation even though you were afraid? Did you take an opportunity you thought you weren't ready for? Each of these is proof that you are capable of more than you believed. In the end, this question isn't about the past. It's about the future. Because if someone has surprised themselves once, they will likely do it again. If they've never done it, chances are they won't when it matters most. Knowing that difference helps you decide who to trust, who to challenge, and who to partner with when the stakes are high. So, next time you want to see beyond someone's resume, beyond their surface habits, beyond even their values, ask them, "What's a decision you made that surprised even yourself?" Because in their answer lies not just who they were, but who they are becoming. Of all the questions we've explored, this one might be the most revealing. If you knew you could not fail, what would you do? At first glance, it sounds like a motivational cliché. But when you ask it sincerely, it becomes a window into someone's deepest desires. Here's why. Most people edit their dreams. They filter them through fear, practicality, and self-doubt. They don't admit what they truly want because they're already rehearsing all the reasons it could go wrong. By removing failure from the equation, you're stripping away that filter. You're saying, forget fear, forget limitations. What would your soul choose if success was guaranteed? I once asked this to a friend who had been stuck in her job for years. She always complained about feeling unfulfilled. but never made a move. When I asked the question, her entire demeanor changed. Without hesitation, she said, I'd open a counseling practice for teenagers. I'd create a place where they could talk about depression, identity, and family struggles without judgment. Her voice lit up in a way I'd never seen before. 6 months later, she enrolled in a counseling program. Sometimes, people just need permission to say what they already know. Another person I asked said, I travel the world and document disappearing cultures through photography that revealed a love of adventure, creativity, and preservation. On paper, he was just a finance guy, but in his heart, he was a storyteller. That one answer reframed how I understood him. This question is powerful because it bypasses surface ambitions. When someone says, I'd build $1 billion company, that reveals their hunger for impact or power. When someone says, I'd paint every day, that reveals their hunger for creativity. When someone says, I'd raise my kids without financial worry, that reveals love and security as their highest priorities. Whatever the answer, it's not about fantasy, it's about values. The Stoics were not dream killers. They didn't mock ambition, but they urged us to distinguish between fleeting desires and deeper purpose. Seneca wrote, It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor. This question reveals whether someone's dream is about accumulation or about alignment with who they truly are. And notice the energy of the response. Some answer instantly, with eyes glowing and voices firm. That means the dream has been there all along, waiting to be voiced. Others hesitate, struggle, or deflect. That often means they've lost touch with their desires, buried them under fear or conformity. Both answers are telling. The instant spark shows clarity. The hesitation shows suppression. Let's bring this into relationships. Ask your partner, and you may discover dreams they never shared. Maybe they'd start a foundation. Maybe they'd live in the countryside. Maybe they'd write a book. Knowing these hidden longings doesn't just connect you, it can guide the life you build together. Ask a friend, and you'll see whether their spirit leans toward adventure, service, or creativity. Ask a colleague, and you'll understand their hidden motivations beyond the job title. This question also works on yourself. Pause for a moment and ask, if I knew I could not fail, what would I do? Would you launch the business you've been postponing? Would you finally have that difficult conversation? Would you create art, teach, write, serve, travel, or love without hesitation? The answer is your compass. Even if you never get a guarantee of success, the fact that the desire stirs you is evidence that it's worth pursuing. The Stoics would frame it like this: life doesn't promise success, but it does promise effort. Your dream may not come without risk, but the act of aligning with it is itself success. Marcus Aurelius wrote, The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. In other words, failure isn't the end, it's the path. But first, you have to admit what you choose if failure weren't even an option. This is why this question is often the most emotional. Because it forces honesty. It doesn't just reveal ambition, it reveals longing. And longing is the raw material of purpose. So, when you want to understand someone at their deepest level, ask them, if you knew you could not fail, what would you do? Then listen not with judgment, not with solutions, but with curiosity. Because in their answer lies not just their dream, but the direction of their soul. So here we are, standing at the end of a journey through 5 deceptively simple questions. We began with highlights, the little sparks of joy that reveal where someone's heart truly lives. Then we moved to old beliefs, discovering that growth is not about never being wrong, but about having the courage to change. We looked at how people wish the world treated each other, uncovering the silent wounds that shaped their values. We explored the choices that surprised them, proof that hidden strength lies dormant in all of us. And finally, we asked the question of dreams, the one that strips away fear and reveals the soul's true direction. But here's the truth. These questions are not just about others. They're about you. When you take them into your own life, they become mirrors. They force you to look inward, to recognize your own highlights, your own growth, your own values, your own moments of courage, your own deepest desires. And the more you practice them, the clearer your vision becomes, not just of yourself, but of the people around you. The Stoics would remind us that wisdom is never abstract. It's lived. Marcus Aurelius reflected daily. Seneca wrote letters to crystallize his insights. Epictetus urged his students to test philosophy in action. In the same way, these questions only carry power when you use them. Don't just nod along, carry them into your conversations. Ask them at dinner with family, during a coffee with a friend, in the quiet moments with a partner. Watch how walls crumble and real connection begins. Because in the end, life isn't measured by how many people we know, but by how deeply we know them. The right question, asked with sincerity, can change the course of a relationship. Sometimes, it can even change the course of a life. So if today's exploration has stirred something in you, let it be this: the next time you find yourself face to face with another human being, resist the shallow script. Dare to ask differently, dare to listen fully, and then notice how the world shifts. And if you've found value here, if these 5 questions have given you a new lens for connection, then stay with us. Join this community where ancient wisdom meets modern life. Keep walking with StoicCraft, because there are countless more lessons waiting to be uncovered. Countless more ways to bring clarity into the chaos of the modern world. Until then, remember, connection isn't about having the right answers. It's about having the courage to ask the right questions.